Hey guys, how are we today? It is now an hour before the market opens on Monday for the last week of March, and pretty much bedtime for me on Monday night on the east coast of Australia. Geez, my English right there. Um, I tried to make a video this morning, but then the market decided to do this. So I decided to wait a full day, well, a full day time, about 11, 12-ish hours, and here I am. So on the monthly time frame, nothing has changed. The BX trender is still 6 red months, and unless we saw a crazy move above $80,000, in the next 26 hours, 26 hours, sorry, 36 hours, because this is on UTC time, I'm pretty sure that BX trender is going to close red, and further downside is still likely. Now, I'm going to make a specific video talking about my bear market price and time targets. Otherwise, this video is going to be way too long. But let's see how this monthly candle closes. If it closes green versus red, I'm going to have some slightly different outlooks for the next few months. Slightly different, not dramatically different. I still believe we'll see the 40 to 50-ish $1,000 range in the future, near future, but in the very, very near future, you can see the weekly candle has closed light green on the BX trender, and this week is looking pretty good. One thing to note is, I've talked about this many times before, but typically when price hits the weekly -1 standard deviation band, we typically get multiple weekly upswings. You can see, obviously, we had the COVID crash where we saw, 2 weekly upswings, and the 2018 bear market, once we hit that band. I'm on the Binance chart rather than the index chart, so it doesn't go back as far as some of the other charts, but you can sort of visualize where the band is. Once we hit it, that was the low in that case, and same with COVID. But for the last bear market, the 2022, you can see how we had 3 weekly upswings. So you can sort of read that as a mini 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know it doesn't perfectly fit Elliott wave analysis, but if you just look at the body closes and ignore the wicks, I would say it fits pretty nicely. And if we were to get something like that happen, then this low right here around 65k, the flash crash earlier today, 12 hours ago, potentially Sunday night for you guys in the US, could set us up for another leg higher to maybe, 76.5 is still a level I'm watching, to 80,000. Maybe we get another higher low. We'll just have to see how time plays out. If we see some really choppy price action, I doubt we'll be able to get 3 weekly upswings. We're more likely to just get 2 weekly upswings before the weekly fair value band comes down and pushes us down just like it did in January. So I'm still watching 80 to 85k as an ultimate target for this rally, as well as anything from around 76.5 onwards as a potential, I guess you could say, a swing break, but just barely. Not much more to talk about in the weekly time frame. I'll probably again make a slightly longer video that covers both the weekly and monthly in terms of bear market price targets. Coming over to the daily time frame, you can see we got our 3 daily closes underneath the 50 TMA, but one thing that made me discount this signal slightly is because we had this strong flush out, but then we saw this reversal, as well as the fact that we were at the time already 4 days down in the swing, and typically because we're still in a trading range, something that Michael always likes to say is don't expect trends to last very long in either direction. And pretty much, you can see here, like, as soon as this consolidation from November to January, like, as soon as we started to break below the lows, you can see we just had a really, really clean trend. And until you saw a change in trend, in this case, a massive capitulation and a snap reversal. I think that was a $2 billion liquidation day or something like that. And that pretty much marked the end of that trend, and we've just been sideways ever since. So as a result, I have discounted this signal slightly, and I have not added to my short just based off of this candle alone. And I'm pretty glad I didn't, because if you have a look, this daily candle has turned the daily swing back up. So if you're using the TIA Gann swing indicator and you're using Michael's trading strategy, you would be long again. And you can see we have rallied right into this 50% level, which lines up pretty well with this volume profile over here. And you can see over here, we got a point of control at around $70,700. So if we do manage to break above this 50% level, we've got the 50-day TMA, which you can see acts as both support and resistance. Because we're approaching it from the underside, it will probably act as resistance at around $69,000. And we've got obviously a couple of swing tops and swing lows, which line up in that 70,400-ish level, 70,100 through to around $72,000. Now, if you are a TIA member, make sure you go check out the impromptu live stream that Michael did this morning. Or if you're not a TIA member, just go and watch some of his YouTube videos. Even though they were from last week, the analysis is still valid because we're still in this trading range. And obviously, his analysis is pretty similar to mine. You want to see action above 68K for an early sign that we're going to retest around 70K. But for any of my upside price targets, like 76.5, 80, 85K to come into fruition, you'd really want to see this swing top at $72,000 break, and for us to get a daily higher low on top of that. In the meantime, I am still on the fence to see whether this fourth time breakdown ends up being a failure, where we see a failed move down equals a fast move up, which is something I talked about in my last video, I think, using a different trend line. I think I was using something like this right here. Something like that, yeah, where we had 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I am still using that particular trend line, Jesus, not like that, if I can actually select, there we go. If I am still using that trend line, you can see that trend line right now pretty much intersects almost exactly with the 50-day TMA. So I would also be watching this 68.8 level quite, what's the word? Quite carefully. It is pretty late at night and my English is starting to deteriorate. Now, on the 4-hour time frame, you can see we did end up printing this double bottom signal on the -1 standard deviation band that I think I talked about in my previous video. I film a lot of videos. I don't upload them all because sometimes, like this morning, I'm about to upload and then the market does something like that. And in the span of around 30 minutes, my entire video is now invalidated and I have to film a new one. But anyway, we typically, when you see the 4-hour -1 standard deviation band get tested, you see at least a reversion back to the fair value band, which we are testing right now. But I've noticed for this entire trading range, we typically come up pretty close to this +1 standard deviation band, and then we come back and consolidate around fair value for a bit before potentially testing this +2 standard deviation band. So I would expect if price is able to get above, around $68,000 and we see some consolidation, we would come up to retest around 71.1 and even around $74,000, which pretty much lines up exactly with that daily analysis and that important 50% level right there. Obviously, we got some nice buying pressure on the 4-hour BX trender. The stochastic RSI is making some nice, higher lows, whilst price makes lower lows, which is a nice regular bullish divergence. And we've obviously seen a really nice $2,000-ish move, $3,000 from the wick low, but from the actual close of the candle where this divergence would have actually been confirmed, would have been just under $2,000. Now, there's not much to talk about on the 1 hour and 15-minute charts. I am still trying to develop a short-term scalping strategy using the fair value bands. Obviously, if I'm on that short of a time frame, YouTube is probably not the best place to be uploading. So I will be potentially talking about these strategies in a YouTube video, but actually posting my entries and exits in the Discords that I'm in. Because by the time I get a video filmed, edited, and uploaded, the signal's probably already invalid by then. But anyways, that's pretty much all my Bitcoin analysis for now. And how am I trading this, if anyone is wondering? Well, I am hedged long is to short because I still believe this is a redistribution pattern. And until we see, some price action in terms of daily higher lows above 72K, I still believe any rally up to anywhere from around 68 to around 71,200 or so would still print a daily lower swing top and set us up for another major leg down. Another thing is the weekly BX trender. Typically, you can see here, in this little bounce here in 2022, we had 3 green weeks and then we rolled over. We had 3 weeks lower high and then a massive, massive sell-off. And in this case, I feel like this bounce was almost too weak to be lined up perfectly with that bounce there. I feel like the bounce we saw in, November to January lines up a bit more like these first 2 bounces, like the January, February 2022 ones, rather than this April one, because that was quite a decent rally and got a lot of people really excited. I feel we still need potentially, if this week snap reverses, because, this candle's just open, we've still got like 6 and something days. If we see, rallies into 77, 80, 85, it could obviously get people really excited, just like in April 2022. And then we roll over and absolutely kick people in the teeth, as I think, is that Jason or Peter DiCarlo, or both of them use that analogy. So I'm pretty much, right now, I have a slight long bias in my hedge. I think I'm 65% long, 35% short. But depending on how price reacts at the 68K level when I wake up tomorrow morning, if we do get into the 69, 70, 71, I'll probably reverse my hedge and go, say, 65% short, 35% long. So I'll reverse about 30% of that long position into a short position. Quick look at the USDT dominance. You can see it's pretty much the reverse signal of Bitcoin. We're starting to get lower lows on the weekly BX trender. And one very interesting thing, I'll probably make a video specifically on USDT dominance. Otherwise, this video is going to be like 30 minutes long. But one thing that I do find interesting, and this is very similar to what Jason talks about in his videos, is once price starts to break out once the USDT dominance starts to break out above all of these previous tops, it typically comes back in a weekly swing to test those, and it doesn't quite come to these previous tops, and then you get this massive move up, and you can see how in that first move up, you touch the +1 standard deviation band, comes back down, doesn't quite touch the previous tops, then it shoots up through the +1 standard deviation band and almost to that +2 standard deviation band. And we've had that first touch on the +1 standard deviation band. We've come back down just above those previous tops, and it looks like we're about to, once we can get some confirmation, it looks like we're about to shoot up and go through that 10% level for the USDT dominance, and maybe we see, 11, 12, 13% or whatever. I don't think we're going to quite touch this +2 standard deviation band, because you can see, as history shows, we pretty much never touch it, and I'm sure Jason would not be very happy if we touched it, as that would probably mean Bitcoin is at a very ugly price and probably won't do well in the next few cycles. So if I zoom in a bit more, you can see we had these 2 weeks right here on this swing where we had a move down in USDT dominance, which would have been a move up in Bitcoin and crypto. We had a pretty neutral close. Then the next week we had another move down, followed by a snap reversal. And if I scroll on my trackpad, because I'm not using a mouse, it's so much fun, you can see we had something very similar last week. We had that move down. We had a slightly stronger close. And this week, if we get another strong move down, really fast move down, and then either this week or next week, we see a really snap reversal. Now, obviously, it doesn't have to play out to the teeth. Maybe this time, because, Bitcoin's dropped faster than last time, you can see, as Jason talks about, in terms of price, we're much closer to the low in price than we are to the low in time compared to last cycle. Like last cycle, price dropped, it took longer for price to drop as much as it did this cycle. You can watch Jason's videos for that. I have bungled my words, but hopefully you know what I mean. But so if we do chop around for a few more weeks this cycle before we start to take off for USDT dominance, that could probably give Bitcoin the chance to come up to, 76, 80, 85K. Or we see a really fast move this week. Maybe Trump comes out and says something about the Iran situation or whatever. Everyone FOMOs in, and then they get wrecked when the market rolls over. And why do I think that's going to happen? Well, if we have a look at the S&P 500, you can see what happened with the tariff drama last year in March, April. You can see we broke underneath that fair value band on the weekly time frame. We came up, it took 2 weeks for us to come back up from the first clean weekly open and close underneath it, which was pretty much this week. We opened and closed underneath it. The week before, we still opened inside the band, so similar to this week here. So I think we're pretty much, this weekly open is going to be this green week here. So potentially we see a move up this week. Maybe next week, the first week of April, we start with a move up and then the market just craps the bed. So I do believe it's very unlikely we see, we're already, 4 weeks down in this swing. I think you can see last time we had 3 weeks down before a reversal. So I really don't think we see, like a 7, 8, 9 week downswing that comes to 6,000, 5,900, 5,800 points. I do believe we still need this little bull trap here first, before the market rolls over. And that's pretty much it. Like, I've got some really interesting analysis to share with you guys in a future video regarding the DXY, the US dollar index, as well as some Forex pairs, such as the USD AUD, as I know a lot of my viewers are based in Australia. And obviously, most of the markets are traded in US dollars. So, knowing when to swap money into US dollars to put into your trading account and knowing when to take some profits and get them back into Australian dollars is very important. Now, I've probably got heaps more videos incoming this week because I have just added the THT long term and the THT combined signal systems indicator into my trading view. And you can see I have been looking at some commodities as well, as I do believe I want to start trading commodities a bit more in the next few weeks, months, and years. So we're obviously playing around with these indicators, and as for now, I'm still trying to figure out like exactly how they work, how to use them, and I will let you guys know how everything goes in the future. But for now, if you have any ticker symbols that you want me to cover, whether it's stocks, cryptos, commodities, forex pairs, let me know and I will gladly make some videos on them, as I do plan on expanding this channel heaps this year. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and goodbye and good night if you're in Australia.